Meanwhile, a lot of those dudes were sleeping with boys. Don't forget that now. A lot of those dudes were sleeping with boys. Let's not forget that part, right? And also journaling. Also, Marcus Aurelius said, take walks every day, take naps every day, journal twice a day. This is not from a Bay Area, some lady telling men to be women. That's not what this is. I've said this to Jennifer a million times. Like a million. Apparently, it's not great. She didn't tell me. But I did run across an article yesterday about how we are giving women a compliment that we need to stop giving them. And at 9 a.m., we'll tell you which one it is. We were talking about journaling a little bit because a study coming out of Japan they were expecting, that was his whole thing. Exercise, nap, write. I mean, that was his whole bag. Was write everything down. You know? And I agree with that. I don't do a great job of it. I don't do it every night. But the nights I do it, I will tell you, I normally sleep better. I wake up feeling like I slept better. I guess that could be a placebo type thing, but okay, fair enough. And it does help me feel a little bit more at ease. Like venting, right? There's been a lot of studies run. Does venting actually make you feel better or not? I always think it does, but it doesn't. I get out what I want to say, but then I can still feel I vent in here a lot. I know you are going, we know, dude. Literally the microphone's turned on. But like, when I'm not on the air, I almost vent. Ask anybody who I've ever worked with, they'll tell you. 5 minutes before the show, he's screaming bloody murder about how it's going to be the worst show he's ever done. And then when he gets out the air, he's like, yeah, not so bad. Right? Like, there's that. Anything, like, any minor inconvenience in here, I am screaming at the top of my lungs while you're listening to the Black Rose about it. And I come back, and I feel as if, well, I exercised it out. But I didn't really. I can still feel it forcing, right, a little bit. So I agree. I think journaling will help you feel better. They were talking about this with rage, but I also think it works the other way as well. I was talking about it, and Tracy says, Stansbury, I'm so disappointed to hear you talk about how a diary is feminine. Well, I don't think so. What I was saying is I think society views diaries as a woman's thing, right? Whether they're right or wrong about it, I do think that's the belief there, and that's why I think the word journal works a little bit better for some. Right? Diary also would feel like, a better way to say that is diary feels like child, journal feels like adult. There you go, Tracy. That's the better way to say what I'm trying to say. Fair enough. I'll meet you on that. Right? But as I have seen it be helpful writing down what I'm upset about, like I can't tell you how many of those journals at night start with, I want to kill Jennifer. Like, I'm not kidding. Like, she has made me so mad today, blah, blah, blah. And then you start writing out. And then when you get to the bottom, you realize you're no longer even writing about what you started writing. A lot of creative writing I've taken. Well, next thing you know, other things will start to flow through. So not only do I think it's a good idea to write down and journal what you're upset about, I think we all be thankful for. Don't wait for Thanksgiving for that. Because that can also make you feel better. Because the human can self-victimize at times. I don't have this. I don't have that. The Joneses have this. I haven't been promoted. I don't have this. I don't have that. I don't have this. But if you start writing down what it is you do have, and I'm talking basic, to do it, like I've heard this piece of advice. Journal what you're happy about. That A word, baby. Much of anxiety. You work out a little bit, walk the neighborhood a little bit, write things, naps. Now that part can be tricky for parents. I get it. Get your kids working the longer you have them. You know that. We all know. It's not even something maybe you have to do every day. But I'll tell you this. I'm willing to bet a ton of money on this. That if you start journaling more, you will write less negative things online in comment sections. I would bet, honestly, the bulk of my money on that. So much of what happens in comment sections is, there's a Pizzaholics page on Facebook. There's all things to love of pizza. Pizzaholics. I don't know why I got connected to that. I don't know, but I did somehow. I saw a picture of a piece of pizza. I was like, is that local? I kind of want to try that. And I just happened to look at the comments. It took less than 4 comments before it was Trump versus Biden inside a pizza discussion, man. I guarantee you, if you start doing this and you keep it to yourself, you will write way less negative things online. And what happens when you write negative things online? What comes from that? Regret. And you start second guessing yourself. Why would I do that? And here comes that A word again. Here comes that one again. It's like drunk dialing the world. Have you ever texted somebody at 3 o'clock in the morning, woke up and thought to yourself, oh my God, man, I am so happy I did that? I mean, if they came over and had sex with you, maybe. But most often you're like, oh my God, I said what last night? And that journal and keep it in your end table in your bedroom. Nobody knows you wrote that down. Nobody knows what you thought. But it's no longer knocking around your brain, holding you hostage either. Back to the Stansberry Show. From 1069. Welcome back to the Stansberry Show. Just got news from management that at noon today, we'll be making a concert announcement. I got to be honest with you, I did not think that this was going to get announced. I didn't. But at noon, you'll get that information. Just be checking our socials. We'll get to that. I'll obviously be talking about this a little bit tomorrow morning on the program. And I believe starting next week, I'll have tickets for you. So be on the lookout for that. All right. I have always been honest about the fact that driving back and forth to the store kind of makes me crazy. Driving back and forth to work can kind of make me crazy. But man, do I love a road trip. I love road trips. I have driven from here to California and back more than once. I've done that to Florida. I've done it to a bunch of different places. Flying is convenient as far as your time goes. But I have always felt like road trips are good for the soul. Which I laugh as I say that to myself because I'm like, I don't even talk like that. But it always feels like I know a little bit more about myself after I've driven across the country. And I've done it alone a couple of times. I would not suggest that. You can find yourself in some sketchy situations. But they wanted to find out what you would prefer. Would you prefer to fly or drive? So it turns out 3 out of 4 people prefer road trips to flying. Small poll of 2,000 American drivers find that they would rather hit the open road than fly. So what about it do you like? New landscapes, new scenery there, essentially. 50% of people said that's their answer. And I've always felt like that's part of traveling that is underrated. Like seeing things. Now, you can go long stretches driving across the country where you're going to see nothing. It's like the next city, right? Most states. But depending on where you're going, like, let me tell you, driving through Nebraska is a better view than people think it is. Way better view. A lot of those states are way nicer and way better options to live than people want to go. Who the hell would ever want to live in Montana? Said by people who have never seen it. Once I take you and you're like, oh, wait, dude, that's Montana? All right, man, I got to tell you, I kind of want to stay right here. But why they prefer road trips, seeing new landscapes, about 50% of people said that. Listening to music was the big one, 43%. Yeah, road trips, who's got the aux cable, that whole thing can be big. Depending on now I'm guessing if you guys are road tripping, my guess is it's what, family vacation, right? And that's how my family went on vacation when I was a kid too. My parents drove to Florida every year with my brother and I. And music was a big thing, right? My dad used to like to drive as long as humanly possible. I'm not stopping, Sue, we're almost there, right? He was kind of one of those. And in the middle of the night, driving through Tennessee trying to get there, he would, he thought all of us were sleeping, but I wasn't. Without him thinking anybody was watching him. And seeing him happy like that made me happy. And it made me, I became a bigger fan of music through that, ironically, because of how much we fought about the album covers from my generation with him, right? But yeah, listening to music on a road trip, I think most people probably. What you apparently like about the road trips too is you're getting a break from the routine, and you get back to enjoying the feeling of driving. Yeah, the open road driving, freeway, middle of the night, music turned up, that's a little bit different than driving back and forth to the store. It also feels like a purpose. A lot of times when I'm driving, I'm like, it's my to-do list. All right, I got to go get this from the store. All right, I got to go to work. Or, okay, let's go visit this person, right? Where if I'm driving to a destination like California or Florida to get a break, to me, it only builds the excitement of the excitement of what I'm going to do. You can think long form, and I enjoy that. I enjoy eating at different places. Now sometimes when you're out of town, you're like, I have no idea if this stuff is any good. Let's just go to McDonald's and we'll call it. You know what I mean? I know what I'm getting there. Big Mac is a Big Mac is a Big Mac, right? But I absolutely think that trying new things from the area is one of the best parts of travel. And the more you drive, the more likely you are to be doing that. This was commissioned by Michelin, so take that for what you will, for Distracted Driving Awareness Month, which happens to be April. Now, they got one poll to do the study, and it found that almost half of the people who have been on a road trip, 43%, rate themselves as experienced. And a fifth of those people, about 21%, go so far as to label themselves as expert level. I don't think I'm an expert level road tripper. Again, I've driven back and forth across the country a couple of good times. Highway 66 is one of those things, man. It does. Now, they don't have all the road stops that they used to back in the day, but it's one of those Americana things where you did it. Much like when I got to California, as I do, take me to the 101. I want to rent a convertible. I want the top down. I want to drive down the 101. I've heard it in songs. I've seen it in movies. It's been in a lot of things I like. A lot of the stars I like always talk about it. Take me to the 101. And sure enough, it did not disappoint. It was like, yeah, this is one of those America feelings. Driving is an American feeling to me. I know other nations have cars. I'm not an idiot. What I mean is it sells that freedom thing for me. Windows down, music turned up too loud, headed westbound. Let's go. Let me get out of here. Vacation mode engaged. Freedom. It absolutely does that. 45% prefer to assume driving responsibilities for the trip, and about 22% prefer to have another person drive. Absolutely not. If I'm in the car, I want to be driving. I am one of those people, I drive fast, and so people can get a little fearful of that, and maybe rightfully so. But I am not a good passenger in a car. I am second-guessing everything you are doing. I, of course, like a lot of men, are thinking about my better half. Intelligent woman, beautiful, talented, great at a lot of things. Every time I'm in the car with her, I'm like, you're not allowed to drive your own kids anymore.
We would have them drug tested, but why waste the money? The Stansberry Show on Rock 106.9.
330-450-7625 to send a text to the studio. We were talking about road trips because apparently in a recent survey, 3 out of 4 people said, oh, I'd rather take a road trip than fly. Now, obviously, I think it probably comes down to how much time, right? I mean, from here to Vegas, it can be like 3 days drive time, let alone when you need to stop to go to bed and like things like that. It can be, that could be a haul. In the world to do something, I think, the road trip may be to get in and out quickly. Now, with all the negative airline stories we've heard over the last couple of months, I understand people being a little bit more cautious, or hesitant, rather, is the better word, about flying right now. I was off over the holiday, and my brother said, are you coming? And I was like, nah, too much time in the car. It's like, hey, buddy, the Wright brothers, pretty big there in our home state, buddy. Like, you might want to, It's like, David, I know. It's like, but are you seeing these stories? I was like, I don't know, man. Like, it's just a lot of industries did not come out of COVID well, and I'm gonna keep these feet on the ground right now. I'm good, right? I believe in the science of flight, thrust and propulsion. I get it, right? Like, I understand it, Uh, I also believe in corporations cutting corners, you know, since we can all see it where we work every single day, right? Yeah, of course. That's what we were talking about. Most people want to drive on the road trip versus be driven, and I would agree. Um, the only time I don't want to drive is if I feel like where we're going, I want to drink. You know what I mean? Then it's like, all right, somebody else drive. I want to drink. I don't want to drive. If not, I normally want to be in control. Also, I like having my car where I go. I want an exit of something. Now that's more locally here. You're not like, all right, I drove to California. Let me turn around, do a U-turn, and go all the way back, right? But I do like to be in control, right? I think most people would rather be in control. Now, what people worry about while doing some road trips is having the reliable car. Yeah, once upon a time, one of the trips to California I made in a car. Luckily, I had a mechanic buddy who was like, "Bring your car here to me before you do that." And he was like, "Yeah, Dan." He's like, "I can't leave you driving to California like this." He's like, "We're gonna have to fix this. We're gonna have to fix this. We're gonna have to fix that." Right. So yes, having a reliable car would be a concern. Too much traffic, and being aware of dangerous drivers and the things people don't like. Now, when talking about staying alert in the car. It looks like music, audiobooks, or a pod is how people mostly will do that, about 58% of you. And then the energy drinks or coffee is a big response here too. About 52% of people said that. I'm not really into the energy drink thing. I think they all kind of have that like weird aftertaste to them. There's a few that I like. The C4s seem to be a little bit better for me than some of those other stuff. But that's basically liquid cocaine, C4. Um, but like they don't have that like weird. I think it's is it that taurine? I think that's the thing in energy drinks that has that weird taste that I'm not wild about. But yeah, absolutely, I can see a lot of people going, all right, give me the 5-hour energies, give me the Red Bulls, give me. No, I was talking about how I drove across country. Route 66 is a big thing that does not disappoint. The 101 in California does not disappoint. Much like the Brooklyn Bridge is like you hear about it and you get there like, okay, I get it. The Golden Gate Bridge, for the first time I drove over that, I was like, okay, this is a thing. I'm from the Midwest, and this is one of those things of the country that people should see. And that was a big moment and all of that. A lot of you guys ride motorcycles, and I'm hearing a lot about taking the trips. My brother's very big into that. He'll leave Vegas and they go to Sturgis every year, and he rides all the way from Vegas to Sturgis, and he does that whole thing. And I think a road trip cross country on a motorcycle would absolutely be a great trip. I'm not necessarily a motorcycle guy. I rode a lot, not a lot. I rode a little bit earlier in my life. It was more my dad and my brother's thing. That's how they kind of connected. To me, the distracted drivers of today, everybody being high on edibles today and all of that, and a motorcycle just is not necessarily how I want to spend my time. And I always feel like that's unfortunate. I once upon a time, dated is not the wrong word, but I used to hang out with a woman who rode a motorcycle. And my brother once said, he goes, if you ever have a chance to sleep with a woman who rides a Harley, you owe it to your penis to do it. He was right. He was absolutely right. But she used to use all those cliches about a bike. 4 wheels move the body, 2 wheels move the soul. And I used to kind of giggle at that, but it is true. And I understand that feeling. Because I talked about how driving with the windows down, radio turned up, feels like freedom. Well, dude, a Harley feels like freedom. Bike, fine, whatever. I'm an Indian and they're better than this. Okay, fine, right? Motorcycle, I see that. That is very much freedom. Wind in your hair, a little too fast, having some fun. It feels like, it still feels like, dude, are you allowed to do that, right? It still kind of feels like one of those things. I read a good portion of the Neil Peart book, Once Upon a Time. I don't think I even finished it, and I probably should go back and do that. But like, I think if memory serves, his wife got sick and may have passed away, and then he took a break from touring with Rush. And he did that. He got on his bike, and I think he did, I don't know if it's worldwide, but he did like a large ride, and the whole book was about it. I'll have to circle back and actually read that again because I'm forgetting a lot of it. But I remember reading that and thinking to myself, oh yeah, I understand why that's a thing. Easy Rider. I understand why that's a thing. You know what I mean? Like I get that mentality. We're out there letting loose, cutting it, and I could absolutely see that with motorcycles. My brother to this day, like he loves that thing. It's like it's his child, his wife, his bike. That's David, right? Like David's such a motorcycle rider. Like sometimes he'll drive to like a bar, like or somewhere, maybe bike night, and people are like, "Show that bike some respect and wash it." And David, I've seen him literally. I watched him say this to a guy at Sturgis, walking right past all of his friends. He said, "I don't wash that bike. I'm not a pussy. I ride it." And like that's David's thing. He's like, dude, it's to move me. I don't care how good it looks. I don't care about this. I don't care about the chrome shining. I want to be on it. I want to ride it. And like that's his thing. David is very much the freebird is essentially who my brother is. That's who he is. If you can be freebird while living in a McMansion in Vegas with a wife and a kid, that's who David is. Absolutely. I think those two things kind of contradict themselves, and I tell him that all the time, and then he punches me at Thanksgiving, and then we're normally over that. But like that's one of those things that I am jealous of that, about the fact that I have a little too much fear of the other drivers now for that as a hobby, and I don't think I would want to ride a motorcycle to work every day. But do I understand getting on one, driving all the way down to Florida to take my vacation? Yes, that sounds like a great way to actually start your vacation while you're traveling for it.
He's a bad influence. But nobody is stupid enough to take him seriously. The Stansberry Show on Rock 106.9.
As you're scrolling the socials this afternoon around noon, swing by Rock 106.9's pages and we'll have a concert announcement for you. I believe we are slated to pass out tickets for that show starting Monday on the program. We'll tell you who that is at noon. I don't normally go overboard for celebrity death. We will make mention of them occasionally, depending on who it is. When Eddie Van Halen died, I mean, we did nothing but Van Halen that day. And Eddie kind of fits that. You know what I mean? Deserving of that. When Ozzy dies, it's like, get ready, the Ozman cometh. I mean, it's just going to be, get ready. If James Hetfield were to die, right? Get ready, it will be nothing but Metallica. I'm a big Kiss guy, and Paul Stanley is going to die. I probably wouldn't go overboard and give you nothing but Paul Stanley that day. I will get a little bold and give you some deep cuts that you should appreciate. But I'm probably not going to go overboard on it because they're not Van Halen. They're not Ozzy. I love them on that level. Most people do not, right? So it's a little bit of a different thing. I probably would not have even mentioned this passing. CJ Snare died. And this is a couple of days ago. And right now I have to tell you who that is, which is one of the reasons I wouldn't have probably talked about it. CJ was the front man of this band. Remember Winter Formal? Little Firehouse. Love of a Lifetime. On Rock 106.9. It's couple skate. Right? A hair rock band. And I have not made mention of this, and people are like, dude, you literally just told that Firehouse story the other day, and you don't circle back after this guy dies to talk about that? All right, so yes, that man has passed away. That's sad for his family, and lovers of all things hair rock, and I guess I would be one of those people. The story, and I'm hesitant to tell you again, this goes back 20 years. But we were doing a big hair weekend on the Cleveland radio station I work at. And it was, I believe, 4th of July, big hair weekend. And I was doing afternoons, and normally you don't do weekend shifts when you're that guy, right? But the PD came to me and said, yo, man, you're into this hair rock stuff. I kind of want this to be a big deal this weekend. Will you pull some shifts for me? Absolutely. So I was knocking around the studio with my buddy Corey, who is, he's worked there longer than I have. and he's a big hair rock guy. And so we were knocking around the studio, and I'm recording this show, and I was, in full-blown DJ mode. This is, crank it up, rip the knob off, all the, standard radio stuff. And so this isn't. And we were going into what we call stop sets. You guys would call it commercials. And I was doing a break into a stop set. All right, big hair weekend on the Buzzard, blah, blah, blah. Just gave you Ozzy, giving you this, Judas Priest. And I just said, joking around, and people did not use this word for sexuality as much back then. It is a huge word in sexuality today. Welcome to all things being cyclical. But back in the day, nobody used this word that way. So I just said, I got some Motley Crue, we'll do some Winger, and I said, and then we'll do some Firehouse for all you queers. And Corey was in the studio and just started laughing hysterically. And I just said across the board, I was like, what is so damn funny, Corey? And I kept it and I ran it. Now, in me retelling it, it doesn't necessarily sound like the story it was in the moment. There, it was one of those things. Corey's laugh made it hysterical, so much so that I knew when it was running, and I turned the radio on. I was like, I gotta hear this happen. I gotta hear this go over the air. And sure enough, it made me laugh every time I heard it. I was just kind of screwing around. I wasn't trying, you know what I mean? But these days, again, people would be like, that's not the word, and you don't know, and I got a kid, and this, and like people would lose their minds about it then. But back then, it was just a word people didn't use. You know why? We were still using the F word a lot. People were still using that word a lot. So I was just looking for a word that would make people go, what the hell was that? What the hell would he have said? Like, I was just looking for one of those, and I did it. So yes, and Corey still has that audio. We were literally telling the PD, the new PD of that radio station the other day at the Guardians home opener. He was like, dude, tell me you still have that. And Corey was like, oh, I got it right here, buddy. And like, had it on his phone, queued up, ready to go, and texted to him. He's like, dude, here's this. Wait till you hear this. It's one of those things. But CJ, unfortunately, has passed away, Firehouse, their lead singer there. Again, they gave you Love of a Lifetime, that one from your Winter Formal ballad. I believe they started in the 80s. They used the 80s system, right? They started with this one. A little bit more of a, if you want to call it that, a little bit more up-tempo rock toad here. Firehouse. And they gave you that one, right? And then it's like, okay, then you come right back with another one. Give me one of these. This was the 80s formula. You give you a Don't Treat Me Bad first. And then here comes the smash. Finally found that love of a lifetime. The wedding song. Get your corsages ready as we go to the dance floor. Right? And they gave you that one. But the one I kind of like was this one. That was all she that was all she left there. Little Dear John letter, Firehouse style, on Rock 106.9. Dear radio, man. I mean, rip it off, crank the knob off, twin spin. Like, Jesus. This industry is absolutely hilarious. So that's my Firehouse CJ Snare story there. Sorry to hear about that, but I got asked about it a couple of times. Like, yo, man, you gonna talk about that? This guy like dies 2 days after you tell that story, and we're not circling back. So there's your circle back. There is one compliment that men give women all of the time that apparently is terrible. I gotta stop this, man, because I say this to Jennifer all the time. We'll address it next on Rock 106.9.
You thought Stansbury was a mess on air? Check out the show's Facebook page at Stansbury Show. Rock 106.9.
Welcome back to the Stansbury Show. 330-450-7625 to text the studio. I ran across this last night, and I got to be honest with you, I got a little defensive when I read it. Because I was like, wait, I've been doing this wrong? I'm not sure I've been doing this wrong. Just trying to be nice. And the road to hell, paved with good intentions. Apparently, there is a compliment that men give women that secretly women kind of hate. Now, of course, this does not mean all women, but apparently more than a few. I always felt like this was a compliment. But more and more women are writing articles, doing their TikToks, and talking about how men try to be nice to them. And they always end up giving them a compliment that they shouldn't. I thought for sure this was going to be about one of the words used for beautiful. Sexy, attractive, hot is a word that I think a lot of men use. I use that. I was like, I bet it's about hot. Don't call me hot, call me beautiful. Or like, I really thought it was going to be about like something like that. Right? But it isn't. More and more women are now claiming that natural beauty is not the compliment you think it is. So one of them says, first, you don't understand how foolish you really sound. Sorry, I got a WD-40. This microphone's terrible. And I was like, wait, what? How is this bad now? And one of the women says here, you don't realize how foolish you sound. Because if you were standing next to another woman and you said, oh my God, you're a natural beauty, that woman standing next to you is going to be like, what the hell are you talking about? That's foundation, that's this, that's this. You just don't even see that there's makeup on this person. She's like, so a lot of times you're saying to somebody you think is naturally beautiful, you just don't understand. They apply their makeup in a manner in which you can't really tell. Other women are saying, quit telling me I look better without my makeup or I'm a natural beauty. We already know. We don't need you to tell us. You toxic male. I think that woman is getting a little too overboard. Right? Because every man knows you will never lose by telling your wife she looks great. You can't tell them enough. Now, some women know they're beautiful, and they carry it like they know it. And we call them bitches. Right? But most people have a little self-conscious built into them. So a little positive reinforcement, especially from the person they're in love with,